And welcome back to another episode of the Barstoolers Premier League podcast. On today's show, we've got an interview with a Spurs fan. Connor, he's a good friend of ours, so we got him on to talk about all things Spurs. So for that reason, we're not going to talk an awful lot about Spurs-Chelsea. And it actually suits because Spurs-Chelsea was pretty boring, 0-0. I think Spurs did like one shot all game or something.
Chelsea XG in the second half.
Yeah. And if they had got a goal from a deflected cross, Mourinho masterclass, shut up. Right, okay, so I think we'll start with Liverpool-Brighton. Not exactly the result Liverpool wanted, but this was bound to happen with all the injuries, wasn't it?
I wasn't going to come on the podcast this week because I was just so fucking angry at this match, but certain other people decided to take this week off instead.
James, his excuse was too many assignments. But we're all in the final weeks of our college year. But you know what? I'll save this for another day.
He did conduct an interview with Connor that will come up later in the show, so he's not completely absent.
In a general sense, Brighton probably deserved to get something out of the match, I think. Because Liverpool weren't very good, and Brighton had a few chances. They had a penalty in the first half as well, which was fucking awful miss. No harm to Mopey. Yeah, it kind of comes back to VAR. I like Andy Robertson said after the match or after the other games over the weekend. He said he wouldn't mind if that one was given as a penalty, but the ones on Traore and Rashford were also given as penalties, but they weren't, and they're very, very similar challenges, I would say.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So again, it just comes back to consistency. So like, in fairness, I can see why it was given as a penalty, but like, just in general, VAR was fucking pissing me off that entire match. Like, the two goals we had ruled offside, yes, they were offside, but I was still fucking annoyed with it.
Yeah, it's Carragher was saying on Monday Night Football, and it's a bit weird, but he is right. It's like there's an unwritten rule where if that's in the middle of the pitch, it's a free kick. But if it's in the box, is it a penalty? No. By the rules, it should be because he got the man. But like, come on, like you need to use your common sense as well.
It's really not a penalty. It's in a general sense, in the match overall, I thought we were very poor. We were a lot better once Henderson came back on, and we're talking about this after the Champions League match against Ajax. Henderson again was probably one of the best players on the pitch. Like Liverpool's midfield is so much better when he's in there. I don't think he gets as much critics nowadays. I think most people have kind of agreed on the fact that he actually is a good footballer now, but for a long time, and like me included, a lot of people just didn't like him at all, didn't like that he was Liverpool captain, didn't think he was good enough. But yeah, just general sense. It was kind of a poor performance from Liverpool, as we said.
I feel like if this was recorded straight after the match on Saturday, this whole thing would have to be censored. But I've had a few days to digest what's happened. No matter how many times I've looked at the Salah, in quotes, offside, I can't see it. I'm convinced he was onside for that. I've looked at that image multiple times. Yeah, done over again by VAR. And the penalty incident gets slowed down, like not in real time. You see that in real time, not a penalty, but it gets slowed down and he barely touches well back. And then Gary Neville put it on the Monday Night Football that whenever the referee goes over to the screen, it's nearly like an intimidation. Like you have to change what you said. They're not sending him over that screen for the good of his health. It's just they're telling him to go over. So it's like, oh, the ref, he looked at it himself, so he's going to change it. It's rubbish.
Yeah, Liverpool slightly hard done by, but I don't think they can really complain about the results. So moving on to the next game, we're going to talk about United's comeback against Southampton. I watched the first 20 minutes of this and we were playing well. It was going well. And I had to leave for 10, 15 minutes. I came back and we were 2-0 down. That was extremely annoying because obviously there's tweets and memes and stuff like that and about how United are shit. And they're like, but we're playing well. Like it was very frustrating to be 2-0 down. But then Edison Cavani came on and completely changed the game. I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, Cavani should be starting over Martial. And I think it's a bit reactionary. Cavani's the exact type of player you want to bring on in that scenario. Just get some crosses into the box and he has a very good chance of finishing them. But if you're playing the weaker sides at home, I think you want Martial. I think it's just a bit reactionary.
I think he's 34, 35 as well. I just don't think the fitness levels would ever be starting matches and playing not even 90 minutes, but I don't think he's going to do you for 70 to 80 minutes if you're going to start him. Brilliant player, but I do think he's much better off the bench as an option for United than he is as a starter. because especially kind of last 10, 15 minutes, he's not really. Martial is someone you kind of want to pitch. He's a lot quicker than Cavani is. He's going to kind of drive at teams. He dribbles at defenders. He's that kind of a player. Whereas Edinson Cavani is more, he's kind of a target man. He's kind of someone's going to be in around the box when in the last 10, 15 minutes, if you need a goal, you're going to be putting balls into the box and probably a better finisher. So you need someone. It's just you need different players for different situations. I think Cavani I don't think he's the player you want to be starting. I think he is a better option to have off the bench as opposed to have him playing the entire match.
He's very much an old school centre forward, and I don't know if you can really be successful as a big team with an old school centre forward now, at least in the Premier League, because the athleticism and the pace of it, I just think Martial is perfect for. And he's got a few critics this season, but I think it's a bit harsh because it's like, he hasn't scored and it's 9 games in. It's like, yeah, well, he's played in 4 of them, to be fair, because he was suspended and he was injured on Sunday, etc. So, yeah. But look, Cavani, brilliant option to have off the bench. And he was brilliant. And United's performance on Sunday, people say, it's a real game of two halves. And I have to disagree. I think United would have been pretty hard done by not to at least get a draw out of the game. But I think we are probably good value for a win. So things are looking slightly up again. On the day recording, we're playing PSG this evening. So we could lose 3-0 or we could win 3-0. We'll just see what happens by the time this podcast comes out. You may have one of 2 perspectives on United. But going on to the next game, we've got West Ham against Villa. And Villa were very hard done by in this game, I felt. West Ham very lucky to win. You have to give them some respect. They're like 5th in the table at the minute, I think. So they do have that ability to grind out results. But Jack Grealish scored an absolute screamer. And in Monday Night Football, Jamie Carragher was comparing him to Eden Hazard. What do you make of those comparisons?
They're not terribly wrong. I think the main difference to them is Hazard has that wee bit more pace when he was with Chelsea. It's probably the only thing Grealish is lacking, but he's just so good in the ball. He has that touch of class about him. But I hate him because he didn't declare for Ireland. But watching him play, it's just so nice to see him play. And he has that partner with Ollie Watkins up top that he didn't have last season. So I think the two of them together, it's been a match made in heaven.
He's kind of one of those players. If you don't have him on your team as a person, you kind of hate him, but he's in your squad, you love him because he's a bit of a shithouse as well. But brilliant footballer, what we said. I can see the comparisons between Eden Hazard and Grealish. I know Eden Hazard in his prime is definitely a lot better than Grealish is now. But Grealish is still young. He's still got time to progress on. And even if he moves to a bigger club, like even if he moves to someone like Chelsea, or I know he was linked with United a lot, it's not to say it's going to happen. But the way he runs with the ball, he's just a tidy footballer, isn't he? We'll say one thing about the West Ham match. I know I said during the Liverpool-Everton match that I thought the Sadio Mane offside was one of the worst decisions I've seen in football. The offside on Ollie Watkins is easily the worst decision I've ever seen in football. It was his elbow was offside.
He was pushed by Ogbonna,
and he was pushed by the defender. He was pushed by the defender, which made him offside. Like, that's ridiculous. And also, this whole thing was like your elbow's offside now. It's like, if you put the ball into the net with your elbow, they would chalk it off for handball. It's fucking... I know we're flogging a dead horse here. It just pisses me off, shit like this.
The rules are there, but at the same time, you do have to use your common sense. And actually, if anything, it should have been pulled back for a penalty.
I seen someone there during the week, yesterday or something, tweet something, was like, am I the only one that still likes VAR? It's people are mad that referees are coming to the right decisions, but they're not. If VAR was being used correctly, nobody's mad at VAR, nobody's mad at like a replay. People are mad at how VAR is being used by referees.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be some changes. Like, I think in the Dutch league, for offside decisions at least, if the lines, there's 2 5-centimetre lines drawn between the defender and the attacker, and if the lines are in any way touching, the goal stands. So there is given that leeway to the attackers. So possibly something that could be looked into.
Yeah, I think
it's a very grey area, all these offsides. They just need to come to the conclusion, like, what is deemed like the whole when Bamford got the goal chalked off for pointing where he wanted the ball. That was ridiculous. It should be like feet or whatever part of your body you scored the goal with, not you're getting pushed. Yeah, it should have been a penalty if it was done for offside, or the pointing. Like, it's just so stupid. There's such a grey area, and it's causing fans to get really angry, especially Liverpool players. They were saying, "Oh, I'm starting to fall out of love with the game." James Miller saying that, but it's just getting really frustrating. We could harp on and on about VAR. We could probably make a full episode on it, but yeah, it's just not everyone's cup of tea at this moment in time.
But moving on to the Arsenal game, and I correctly predicted this 2-1 win to Wolves. I've never been more confident in a prediction. It was the most 2-1 away win that was ever going to happen. And it did work that way. But it didn't come easy for Wolves because Raul Jimenez had to go off with an injury only a few minutes in. And that actually leads us to a question we've got from friend of the podcast, David Murphy, aka the Mongoose King on Twitter. He's a podcast, Two Men in a Podcast, so make sure to check that out. But he asked, thoughts on why football is so far behind other sports when it comes to dealing with head injuries, and any ideas for fixing it? Concussion subs, allowing medical staff to stop a player going back on after a clash of heads, etc. So do you think there needs to be a change? Because in the last couple of years, it seems like football is taking it more seriously. If there's any clash of heads, the physios are on straight away, or doctors rather, but it never seems to me that these players ever go off. They're always clear to play, which surely can't be the case.
I think with other sports, they have the concussion thing down way better. You think of the GAA, rugby, and the NFL. Like, I know they're more contact sports, but they have their concussion protocol way better. I know rugby have the concussion sub. And pretty much if you're going off for a concussion test there, you're not coming back on. So there's more onus on the medical staff. They take it into their hands rather than leaving it up to the player. And the GAA say that, like, if there's any doubt at all, you're not going back on. I think that's the right attitude to have. It's leaving the players safer. Because watching the Atalanta game against Liverpool a couple of weeks ago, I think it was Gossens, he got a big hit off the keeper. And he was wobbling about coming on. So that's obviously him just saying, oh no, I'm grand, I can go on. He clearly wasn't. There needs to be more pressure put on the staff. Because the player's going to want to go out and play. But if the player's health's at risk, the medical staff really need to step up. I think they need to change the rules in football to have subs, and that if there's any doubt at all, he needs to come off.
I think one of the main problems is it kind of takes a big injury for this kind of thing to change. Like, I know over in the NFL, I know the case with Aaron Hernandez, it was a tragic case, but like that, so something like that kind of concussion protocol only really took major reforms because of players getting really serious concussions and dying because of it, or like in Aaron Hernandez's case, just completely losing the plot. I probably agree. There needs to be something done before something really serious happens. I know there was Ryan Mason a few years ago. He had to retire because of a head injury. I know that was just a once-off, like it wasn't a build-up of concussions, but there's a lot of players that go in there, like especially defenders and even kind of the bigger attackers who are always going in for headers, who would, on a fairly regular basis, get clattered out of it by goalkeepers and stuff like that. Like that's kind of stuff going to build up, and it's. I think it kind of comes back to the problem as well that Jurgen Klopp and a few other managers have kind of said, there has to be. They're saying now this season, because there's such a big fixture pile up, there should be more subs allowed. I think in the case of, like, say for example, you've made your 3 subs and someone gets a concussion, some people be like, oh, maybe just let them play on. I think there should be some sort of rule where, like, if someone's injured, someone gets a concussion, when all substitutes have been made, there should be another substitute allowed to be made. It's just kind of again, as the point Jurgen Klopp was making, you're trying to protect the players by, if you allow 5 subs, players are less likely to get injured and teams are less likely to be affected by it. Like, there just kind of needs to be a little bit more caution in this kind of thing. There needs to be a lot more protection of the players. Someone has to step in and say, this isn't safe. If people are getting concussions on a regular basis, they have to say, just don't go. You're not allowed to go onto the pitch. Like, you're right. Actually, I think it has to be the medical staff have to come along and say, no, you can't. Like, it shouldn't be up to the players. The players, if you're concussed, you can't make that decision for yourself.
You said about the additional sub, like, teams would abuse that. Like, how do you gauge if someone's actually injured and stuff? And even with head injuries, because like the referee can say, oh, look, like you weren't involved in a clash of heads, but like they could have missed it. They don't know that. So I feel like that could be abused. And then, if there is a clash of heads and the players have to automatically go off, like, I guarantee you there'd be fairly innocuous ones. Players would have to come off, and then people would start giving out about that. So it's a very difficult one to get right. I feel like the doctors probably feel pressure in some scenarios. If they're like, they might be okay, if it's Van Dijk or something for Liverpool, he's probably going to feel pressure from Klopp to just say, yeah, he's all right. So it's a very difficult one to get right. But I think we've talked about that long enough. As I said, Spurs against Chelsea was a bit of a non-event, but Spurs' season so far certainly hasn't been. So I'm going to pass it on to James, who was talking to our friend Connor, who's a lifelong Spurs supporter, to get his take on the current season.
So hello everyone, here we are with a much anticipated interview with our good mate Connor. He's a long time listener and a fan of the Barstoolers pod, and he's a Tottenham fan. So this is a new perspective we have this week. So how are you feeling, Connor?
I'm feeling good, James. Thanks very much for having me on the podcast.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Now, looking at this current Tottenham side, how does it compare to the first side you supported with Tottenham? Like, how does that compare?
Well, from the first team I would have watched, a lot of talent. A good manager. We just had Redknapp in at the time. Now, he did turn around a very poor start to the season. We were on a run of seasons where we looked like kind of Crystal Palace side, maybe. Not quite going down, but not even good enough to go top half of the table. Redknapp was kind of able to swing it around, and our overachievement was actually making Champions League. And now we're looking at being more disappointed, not making the Champions League and potentially title racing teams. I'm much better, much happier with how we're going at the minute.
Yeah, that's the big change with Tottenham that even I've seen. It's more focus on being a Champions League team. Like Levy really has got the ball rolling. It's like Arsenal years ago. You'd be very, very disappointed to not be in the Champions League and how quick it can turn for a club. Like we'll get on to Arsenal later on. But what do you think this season makes Spurs tick? Be it Mourinho or a player or a number of players? Like what is key to Spurs' success?
I think it's easy to say Mourinho, but it has to be him. He came into the squad. We were having that syndrome after the Champions League final with Pochettino. The season didn't get going at all. Pochettino was really loved with the squad, and the transition seemed actually pretty good with Mourinho. Those players that were kind of like Harry Kane that were really looking for success. I would have thought Eriksen was another player, but he seemed content enough to leave. But I think Kane and Son under Mourinho were really able to see that winning was the way forward for the club. They've been there long enough, and they want to see some silverware. Other players like Toby Alderweireld, for example, he was a bit poor now in the last couple of seasons, but he was still a starter under Pochettino. The start of the season against Everton, we actually lost 1-0, and Alderweireld was dropped straight away. There was an interview with him on international duty with Belgium, and he mentioned how aggressive it was to try and get back into the team, and it was the locker room, changing room was completely different with Mourinho than under Pochettino.
Yeah, look, it was completely different changing room. Like I was looking at Pochettino there today at Sky from a few weeks ago talking about Maradona, and he's talking about Dele Alli and how he sort of cultures the same personality as Ronaldinho or Maradona in that sort of likability. And I don't know, I just don't really know what tangent he was going on, and just the same affinity for the players like Jose just doesn't have, but he's going to give you that winning mentality. Like I remember you thinking when Mourinho came in initially, like he's the man, get the trophy in, mightn't be there for longevity, but he'll get the trophies in. And in that sense, last season, I think you're very unlucky with your injuries, because it could have been the season to get the trophy and get the ball rolling for the all or nothing, but the injuries you're just laden with was crazy. So do you think he's essentially a season behind and this is the season to do that and kick on?
I think so, yeah. I'd nearly look at this season as his first. I think he came in around November, December. I think it was November. And the injuries were nearly comedic. And to actually still be able to get enough results. Now, we finished the league on very few points. We only had 59 players. We really added to the squad over summer. So I would look at this season as Mourinho's first season. We've, there's Mourinho's typical at having his 2 seasons, and then the 3rd season he kind of withers away, but he's got the silverware in the bag. And I just think this season is the first one. He's got his team. He's got his players. Because I look at your team, right, and I see
Poch did a great job building that team. Like, fair enough, you need to replace players here and there, but when you look at Klopp's Liverpool side that faced off against Spurs, I think it was a 0-0 or a 1-1, wasn't it? A 1-1, I think. Klopp's like first away game.
Yeah.
And there's two survivors of that squad, Milner and Henderson. And both, they're not renowned for being world class, to be fair, but they're workmen. Like, you look at that team Mourinho's inherited. You've got Harry Kane, arguably the best striker in the world at the moment. You know, like, there's a lot of parts that he's inherited there that he can really do a lot of things with the additions of Højbjerg and a few other players just to really enforce his style of play and create that transition. So, yeah, I think he's got a lot of tools at his disposal, and I think you're right in that sense that he's going to kick on this season. But yeah, what a season it would have been to do all or nothing this year. Like, you want a camera in that dressing room right now. You know, did you see his post-match interview last night where he said that all the boys aren't happy and what a great dressing room it is to be in? Brilliant.
Yeah, that's coming away from Stamford Bridge with a draw, being disappointed, and we're still top of the table. Like, that's different. That's different to Pochettino's Tottenham. Another interview on International Genie was Musa Sissoko, and he was saying each game week leading up to the match, it was winning at all costs. The 3 points always. Winning wasn't looked at it with Pochettino. It was about playing football. It was about the system that we're going to play and trying to execute it. I think a lot of times Pochettino would even mention in post matches, we played well, we played what we meant to do, we didn't come away with what we wanted. And I think that mentality is different, and it had to happen. And there's players in Mourinho's side excuse me, that were with Pochettino that are willing to do the dirty work, to play harder football, more aggressive football at the end, maybe when you're 1-0 up, to try and see out the results. The result is what's becoming the most important thing, and I think he's really drilling that into the players. Eric Dyer, I think, at the back is probably actually going to play a key role in that, and as well with Højbjerg coming in is just typically what we needed to kind of show that it is a strong side. We need to bring that aggression in. We need to maybe sacrifice some of the pretty football at certain stages to try and get the results.
Yeah, look at that. You made a few interesting points there. Like, looking at the all or nothing in particular, you're highlighting Eric Dyer there. See Harry Kane too. They're both in the presser. They're getting all their tactics fed from Mourinho, and they're just so attentive to his every word because they know this man is a serial winner. And, you know, he's the thing to turn it around. Like, you speak about mentality. I know we were actually watching the Ajax Spurs game together, and there was serious raw emotion in that game. Like, what a season of Champions League football. Well, I would say that because I'm a Liverpool fan.
Yeah.
And Pochettino, though, he was just explosive with emotion. You're not going to get that with Mourinho. You are, you're not going to get the Porto Mourinho. Like, you're going to get the cool customer. Like, you're not leaving it to that last minute to beat Ajax. It's just...
you're going to get the I told you so Mourinho.
Yes, of course you are. You're going to get the shush. You know, have some of that. You're not going to get the Argentine, like, just serious fashion. But look, there's a lot to be said for both styles, and I do have a lot of time for Mauricio, and I hope he finds a job soon, but I'm sure he will. Look at that United job or there somewhere.
Top man.
Absolutely a top man. But so just taking it back to you for a second, what's your favourite Tottenham memory?
My favourite Tottenham memory? Oh, man.
Would Ajax feature there, up there, or no?
Ajax is up there. It's definitely Champions League based. We've got Peter Crouch's goal against Man City.
Bale against Inter, maybe?
To confirm us in the Champions League. But that Inter Milan at White Hart Lane, when we actually beat them, I think I did watch the Bale at the San Siro when he got the hat-trick. But no, I think probably beating Inter Milan at White Hart Lane on the return, because we knew we had them. I think they were shook in the first half, to say the least, 4-0 down. But yeah, to beat the champions, then yeah, that was probably up there with some of the top memories.
Of course, what an Inter Milan team that is. Like, you have to caveat that with the past. Like, they were the Juve of those days. Like, and then by definition, what is your worst Tottenham memory? Were you at your lowest? Champions League final, or?
Probably one. We were at that stage in between managers, Andres Villas-Boas, and Tim Sherwood. We were a pathetic side, Tim Sherwood actually got Kane in the side. That was about the best thing he did. But I mean, we were consistently conceding massive scores. Liverpool, I think, got maybe five goals against us in Anfield, 6-0, I think, at White Hart Lane, and Man City
John
did the
Flanagan.
exact same. I think
shocking.
Yeah, we had something like minus 25 goals for 4 games against City and Liverpool. That was a real low point, and it really didn't look like there was anything going to come from the club. And then Pochettino came in and rightly turned it around, rightly made a team.
Yeah, and what is it about Southampton managers just doing some magical things? Like, you know, they just
knowing their stuff.
Yeah, honestly, it's crazy.
They really are the Ajax of England in players and managers. Maybe more so managers with the Saints.
Yeah, there's a few teams like you think a more peak Bale and a Luka Modric obviously going over from Tottenham. You think, oh, what a side Tottenham could have had if they had kept all these players. Liverpool with Suarez, but imagine the Saints with all their boys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. That's a talk for another discussion.
Yeah.
So looking ahead to Arsenal on Sunday, the big one. Obama who? Obama what?
Obama what is he doing?
Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I am looking forward to it. They're in a really poor spot, Arsenal. The loss last night against Wolves, even losing to Jimenez. Maybe that inspired Wolves to go out and get the win. But they looked rubbish. They had no flair. Up front, it was really, really poor. Aubameyang at one stage was on the wing. He had a chance and he just gave a really lazy cross in. Didn't try to recover the ball. And it looked like an Arsenal side that have not that they ran out of ideas, that they had nothing at all. Now, the one thing would be that would worry me is that they might have hit rock bottom right now, and that this whole week the Arteta will be saying to the players, it's Spurs next. Don't make a fool of yourself. This is where we change it.
Yeah, that's what it's been.
And I'm actually expecting first 10-15 minutes Arsenal to come all out for us, and it's just weather out that storm, or maybe just break them down completely. And I would still expect a comfortable win, but I just do think maybe the fact that they've gotten to hit such a low point, that this is the fixture that might try and get them riled up for a result.
Yeah, look, 10 games gone, 21 points, sitting pretty at the top of the Premier League table. You certainly would have bitten anyone's hand off for that return of points after this many games. But Arteta, like, is it the bigger game for Arteta? Or do you think, of course, it's the bigger game for Arteta? Do you think he would be able to rile up the players sufficiently? Or is it a bigger game for Mourinho with just a must not drop points?
I think so. At home, it's going to have to be Mourinho needs to keep us up there, keep us at the top. Arteta, I mean, I don't think he's in danger of losing his job. I think even a good performance, even with Arsenal losing, I think might be able to get them going a bit. But I mean, it's an Arsenal team that's really struggling to try and rebuild with Arteta, compared to a Spurs team that's starting to try and finish off a team with a top manager and try and win. I think it's two different ends of the spectrum. So I'm not really expecting much other than a Spurs win.
Yeah, look, I think it's quite unfair maybe to compare the two North London rivals. I do think Spurs are clear in terms of manager and squad at the moment, and new stadium and everything. Everything's going for them. But they almost feel like Arsenal of the past, you know, when Arsenal first got the Emirates regular Champions League side. And look at them now. I don't even think they give Emery enough time. So if they got rid of Arteta this side of Christmas, I don't know where they go from there. But
yeah,
again, that's a discussion more on Arsenal. But looking at Aubameyang, like last night, putting in no effort against Wolves, lazily going for things, not creating a thing. I know he hasn't got great players around him, but Kane is just the complete opposite of that. Like, he could play a man the match at centre back if you needed him to, the way he's going on.
Yeah,
honestly,
like Aubameyang is captain at the minute. He has to be bringing something extra to the dressing room, and you've got Kane. We saw him in the All or Nothing. What he is like, what he's about. It's no surprise that he can get the players going. He's always the one that's probably the most disappointed with a poor result. But I know Lloris is our captain, but Kane really is the leader, I feel. And as you say, this season, he's just been unbelievable in his performances and his humility around the game. He's really willing to do everything.
Yeah, like the commentators find great hilarity in set pieces coming in deep and Kane's the man to hit the block. Oh, is that Eric Dyer? No, that's Kane. And
That's Harry Kane.
Start the attack, launch the balls. You're just seeing a new lease of life under Mourinho, under Kane. And even I went in, bit lukewarm on Kane. Yeah, he's world class. He's this, he's that. He's not going to be up there for the goals this season. Injuries usually plague him. No, I was like, this is not happening. I didn't see, and I don't think many rival fans seen Mourinho getting the best out of Harry Kane, and he's gotten more than the best. You could definitely say this is the best Kane we've ever seen.
Yeah, you could. And even with seeing him at the end of last season, at the restart when he came back from injury, he didn't look fit at all. And now you could have said, yeah, he didn't have enough time to get fit, but he was slower. And even started the season, you could say he's even lost half a yard or a yard, even though he was never blessed with pace. There was a stage where he's probably able to get in front of a man and strong enough to hold him off. But right now, he really would need to hold up the play even more. But the fact that he's been able to do that, like game in, game out, like man of the match performance against Man City with only maybe an assist, shows you how much more of just a striker he is. And his passing, his execution of passes, not just assists, just his range is it's been brilliant. Probably the best in the league so far in terms of passing range.
Yeah, like personally, I'm looking towards that game with absolute glee because any game I see Spurs marked down on the calendar, I'm like, right, that sitting down, getting the popcorn out, we're ready to watch that. It's going to be a show. They're a great team for the neutrals to watch this season. But what do we think about other players for this game against Arsenal? Who's going to be clutch against Arsenal? Who's going to come up trumps?
I think, let's see, it's Derby Day, so you're going to be looking at Højbjerg right in the middle, breaking down the plays, getting big tackles in, stopping their flow, stopping their rhythm. You want Eric Dyer to be up for the game, but you're also kind of fearing of maybe going in too aggressive. We don't want to have too much hype in the squad, too many bad challenges. And I'm maybe thinking Joe Rodon starting again. Don't get him sent off. Don't give away a penalty. There's going to be a lot of emotions. Top of the league. Let's stay at top of the league.
But imagine a bit of Joe Rodon magic this weekend. Like a nice wee header.
Bullet header.
Bullet header, of course. Like into his own net, perhaps. But like the danger of this game is you can't give Aubameyang confidence this game. Like this could really set Aubameyang off this season if he was to get anything in this game. Even a pen, to be honest with you.
Put him on the left. Aubameyang on the left, though. We may still need to play Aurier, which is always danger. Aurier on any competent winger is bad news.
Yeah, it could be bad news for Aurier, yeah.
It could, and as long as Rodon... He was a bit shaken, I think, against Chelsea. I still think he should be okay. But there's definitely better centre-halves out there to learn from other than Eric Dyer. So let's hope he gets on okay.
See, Arsenal fans were gassing up Arteta like something serious. And they're like, this Wolves result's not the worst thing in the world. And then you look forward to next week and you see Spurs now have the chance to go 14 points clear of us this early stage in the season after 11 games. That is just not acceptable for Arsenal Football Club. And I think they're really starting to see where they are in relation to Spurs. And of course, like you're saying, Højbjerg is the absolute destroyer, controller. I think he had most passes in the league. He's up there touching top 3 or 5 passes in the league. And just stats don't lie. Spurs are really going places. And
that's us with points dropped. We've dropped points in 4 games. Like, it hasn't been perfect. Yeah, it does really show you. Now, Arsenal have played a few tough games, as you said. But, I mean, it's starting to get worrying for them. A result for Arsenal now could really change their season. But I just can't see it happen.
This is the caveat, I think, with most of the top teams. Obviously, Liverpool have dropped a few points in a few games. I think the other teams are really they should be delighted with how Liverpool and City are going this season. I think 85, 86 wins you the title this season. Can comfortably enough say that. I think the way that teams have been dropping points. And do you really seriously see Spurs as challengers this season?
I see them as challengers, yes. I don't think we will win the league this season, but my heart's saying we can, because I do feel like this could be the season to do it. If anything, Spurs' history will show you, it's that we never put together a good league run, regardless. Our highest points tally was 86 points when Conte's Chelsea lifted the title. That was our best since we actually won the league in 61. Now, 86 points, we scored the most goals that season, conceded the least amount of goals, and only lost four games. We were unbeaten at White Hart Lane, and we still managed to come second by 7 points.
That was a serious Chelsea team that season.
It was a very good Chelsea team, and we're going to have to aim for those figures again if we want a chance to win. I would hope we could get 80 plus, maybe 80, 84, 85, but we're going to need a lot of help from some of the big teams continuing to drop points if we're going to win the league. But I don't think we've got all the right elements just yet.
See, as a Liverpool fan, if we're going into the back end of April and Spurs are 3 points ahead, 3 points behind, if there's a couple of points in and Spurs are up there, I'm seriously worried. I'm more worried than Pep being around there because Mourinho knows how to close off a season. You know, bearing in mind all the players are fit, that'll be huge for him. I think he could really, really get the bow tied on that Premier League season or that Premier League trophy.
Yeah, I think the remainder of this year is going to say a lot of the team that's going to come out in the new year. We've got big fixtures. We've managed to do well so far in these fixtures leading up with Man City, great win. Chelsea, happy with the draw. We've got Arsenal and then a couple of weeks Liverpool. There's a couple more big fixtures, and I think if we're top of the league or maybe just second coming into the new year, we can talk more about maybe being title challengers. But for now, I think we just need to catch our breath at the start of the season. I still would have taken top 4, so I'm not going to get too ahead of ourselves just yet.
Look, the season really starts to heat up now after that first international break, and the Europa League fixtures are coming hot and heavy, so they're going to play a part on your season, of course. But if you can go to places like Anfield, the Etihad now, get a 3 points or a draw, just don't lose in these places. That'll be indicative of how the season's really going to go. And I think Spurs do pick up a trophy this season, be it a League Cup or something. They just have to.
We really do have to. Yeah, Europa would also be. I think I'd say Mourinho's top priority is probably the Europa. He's putting out really good squads against very average teams. We still haven't been able to get amazing performances in the Europa so far, but we will still should be qualifying comfortably enough. I think we can qualify with a win on Thursday, maybe just a draw. But yeah, it's going to be very congested with fixtures coming up around Christmas, and if we can just, as you say, don't lose, it'll be very interesting to see where we are.
And of course, looking forward to the Arsenal game, like we did earlier on. Just didn't get a score prediction for you. What's your score prediction for that game?
I think we'll concede, but ultimately we will win the game comfortably enough. I'll go 3-1. I'll say maybe an Aubameyang consolation penalty.
Happy days, yeah.
Just for my FPL.
Not great for Lloris, but yeah, I know you'll have to wait for the podcast to hear my prediction. I'm going to be coy about that. Coy Spurs. Yeah. But yeah, so it was great having you on, Connor. Hopefully we'll have you on again for a European special or something. You're a delight as always. Anything else to close off the pod?
No, I've nothing else to add. Just delighted to be on it. Hopefully it's the first of a few. Great to get the different perspective from you. I'm sure. Try and balance out the Liverpool, Man United base. Bring in a Spurs head. Let's win the league.
Brilliant stuff. And we go back to Connell in the studio.
Thanks very much.
So now we're looking ahead to the next set of Premier League fixtures. We're playing the Predictor League, if you don't know, where one of us will win a jersey courtesy of the others. And a big swing this week. I'm no longer bottom. I went all the way up to second. Mixer, you had a bit of a disaster of a week. You got 1 point from 5 games.
Oh, Jesus.
Ronan, you got 3. I got 6 with 2 correct results. James is still top. So you're both on 28. I'm on 29. And James is on 35. So you can definitely catch James, but at the minute he's out in front and it's very tight between the rest of us. And the 5 games we're going to predict this weekend. Moved on quickly from Connor's prediction. He said 3-1 Spurs. Spurs against Arsenal at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's a difficult one to call, and honestly it's one that I'm really, really looking forward to, because either Spurs win and Arsenal lose again, which is funny, or Arsenal win and then the Spurs sort of train starts to slow down a wee bit. So it's kind of a win-win, and even a draw wouldn't be great for either team, so probably ideal. I can't see past the Spurs winning this. Arsenal look absolutely hopeless at the minute. So 2-0, just simple as that. I don't see how Arsenal get a result out of this game unless they put on a really, really good performance.
Yeah, the more I watch Arsenal, the more I'm convinced Arteta's just Unai Emery with a better haircut. In fact, I think he's actually had a worse start than Unai Emery.
Yeah, he has.
Yeah, Spurs are just a lot better at football at the minute, aren't they? I'm probably going to go for 2-0 Spurs win. I think Arsenal are just a bit shit. Sorry, I'm not giving great analysis there, but
people know exactly what you're talking about, I imagine.
Yeah. In conclusion, Arsenal bad.
Yes, fact. Simply, Arsenal, they're just hopeless. They're not a very good team at the minute. There's no cohesion. They have too many young players that they don't know where they line the squad. They change the squad too much. Defense is rubbish. Midfield is rubbish. Aubameyang's rubbish. Lacazette's rubbish. The only position that they sort of have that's on lock is Leno. He's probably their only good player. And see nothing other than a Spurs win. Yeah, Son and Kane, they're just too good at the minute. 3-0 Spurs.
3-0, emphatic. Next game, Chelsea at home to Leeds. Leeds are struggling a little bit more. They bet everything at the weekend, by all accounts, but first couple of games into the season, you're thinking these lot they could push for Europe, but nah, it's definitely slowed down. Chelsea have steadily improved this season, and yeah, I'm not going to predict a shock here. I'm just going to go 3-1 Chelsea.
Go for a 1-1 draw. Like that, I think Leeds are still good. They've kind of not been as good in recent weeks. They definitely had a lot better. Their start of the season was definitely a lot better than their recent form. But even against Everton, I think they had 17 shots on target or something ridiculous like that. So like there's still a threat going forward. The only thing is defensively, they still don't look amazing. But I'm still not convinced by Chelsea. Like I've yet to watch them and be totally convinced that they're brilliant. So yeah, 1-1. Sorry.
Yeah, I watched Leeds at the weekend and they were quite impressive. They were very good going forward. Calvin Phillips was quite good. Just Pickford, surprisingly, it was good. But I don't see anything other than a Chelsea win in this scenario. I think that Thiago Silva and Zuma, they formed a good partnership at the back. Chilwell, he's pretty good. He's been a great signing for them. Reece James has also been quite good also. Yeah, so I've been thinking about this and now, so it's definitely Chelsea win and I'm going to go 2-1 Chelsea.
Okay, so next game, Liverpool at home to Wolves. Quite a difficult one to call, I think, because both teams have been a bit weird this season. Liverpool have been, they're still joint top of the league, but they're not quite as good as they were, and injuries doesn't help that. Wolves, kind of similar, but even they're 6th or 7th at the minute. They've actually been doing okay, considering the performances haven't been great. So it's a difficult one to call, so I'm just going to play it safe and say a narrow 2-1 win for Liverpool.
I'm going to go for a close 1-0 win for Liverpool. I think he actually will be able to go for kind of a stronger side this week because obviously Liverpool have secured top spot in the Champions League, so he's going to be able to rest players during that game, and he didn't play a full strength squad against Ajax really during the week, although it was probably one of the strongest squad he could have played at the time. But certainly in terms of Premier League, I think it's probably going to be our strongest squad we played in a few weeks. Like that, Wolves are still good, but they're not as much of a threat on the counter-attack anymore. I know it's kind of a lot to be made of that they've kind of changed their style of play. They don't really play that counter-attack style of play football this season. It's kind of more slow build-up. And I think certainly without Raul Jimenez in there, I don't think they offer as much of a threat going forward. So I'm just going to go for a close 1-0 Liverpool win.
It's a tough enough game to call this one. Wolves, they've been weird. Obviously, the win against Arsenal was big for them. It's with Milner injured, Neco Williams. I think someone like Podence could cause them a lot of problems. But Diogo, he's coming up against a former club. I think the demons are going to come out and he's going to put 2 past Patricio. So going with a 2-0 Liverpool win, both Jota goals.
So then the second last game we're going to predict, it's West Ham at home to Man United. And as a United fan, I hate this fixture. The London Stadium is notoriously not a particularly tough place to go. But we still managed to lose pretty much every time we go there. I think we won the first time we went there in like 2016, but after that we haven't won a game. So I'm going to say 1-0 West Ham. They're plucky. I don't understand it, but I feel like they're going to catch United on the hop.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go for a 1-1 draw. There's just been a lot of weird teams in the Premier League this season. West Ham are one of those teams as well. I know I said this in the last podcast. They're shit, but they're good. They're after beating Villa, and they've been on pretty good form. I'm not convinced they play that good football, and I don't.
They had 2 shots against Villa.
Exactly. I don't think they're that good, but they're getting results. So it was kind of like Newcastle last season. Like Newcastle were shit last season, but they just kept on getting results. I think they had the lowest XG in the league, and yet they still finished something like 13th or 12th. So I do think it's going to be a tricky one for United. So I'm going for a 1-1 draw.
Wasn't there some record with United? It was like 5 consecutive away wins in the Premier League, something like that. 8, yeah. Unfortunately, I think it's coming to an end. Not with a loss, though. I just think it's going to be a bit of a boring game. 1-1. Yeah, can't see too much coming of this game, but what do I know at the end of the day? It could be crazy, but hopefully not. Hopefully United don't win.
Yeah, it's definitely one that United could just go out and win 4-0, but you just never know. So in the last game, Sheffield United at home to Leicester. What's happened to the Blades? It makes for tragic watching. I'm not going to dwell on this game too much. I think Leicester, they seem to be free scoring at the minute. I'm going to go with a 3-1 away win to Leicester. The Blades just look hopeless.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a 4-0 drumming. I think the main problem there is the defence without Jack O'Connell. I think Jack O'Connell is an absolutely brilliant defender. Without him in there, they just don't look as good as they were last season. And then again, Ramsdale is. I know you don't like Ramsdale. He's shit. I'm not going to hold back. He's just. Henderson's a huge loss in there. So yeah, I'm going for 4-0 Leicester.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same score with a 4-0 Leicester win. Yeah, Blades, they're hopeless. Nothing going forward. Spent that money on Brewster. Yeah, bad. Like Liverpool got a very good deal off that, 25 million. Defense is rotten. Keepers. I'm going to say the worst keeper in the league is Ramsdale. I would have said Kepa previously, gone in on some rants about him, but out of the starting keepers, he's definitely the worst. He couldn't catch a cold. He's dreadful. So yeah, Vardy and the men are putting 4 past the Blades.
And that concludes another episode of the Barcelos Premier League podcast. So whatever you're listening on, liking, subscribing, following, downloading, all that stuff helps massively. We had a question this week. So if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. All our social media links will be in the description. So you can ask away there. Follow us on that. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back again next week.